Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I'm your host, Andrew. Joining me tonight is Joe, and off of the 60-day IL, Ron has returned triumphantly. How you doing, bud?
Good.
You could have picked a week when the Phillies were playing a little better. You missed all the good weeks and had to come back when they're playing like absolute garbage. So I do apologize for that, but hey, that's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Joe, how are you holding up, man?
Hey, hanging in there.
Good. I like the shirt, especially given the Cubs' success against the Cardinals this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the success against the Cardinals, and it came at home, so they're definitely allergic to winning in St. Louis, so it fits, you know?
It does. All right, so Ron, what are you drinking tonight, bud?
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew? All right. Just the regular, not the hard?
Yep.
All right. How about you, Joe?
Rocking the hard Mountain Dew train again this week. I've got Baja Blast and watermelon because it just seems like the perfect combo of emotions as a Cub fan.
That's fair. You know, Ron, ever since you brought the hard Mountain Dew on the one time, I think you got Joe hooked.
I am, man.
It's
hooked.
good. It really is.
It is scary good, and the fact that it's like a fraction of the sugar actual Mountain Dew has, plus alcohol. It's not a bad combination. They really nailed the flavor. For me tonight, it's Minky Boodle. It's raspberry sour ale from Thin Man Brewery up in Buffalo, New York. Actually, pretty good. I just found it at Wise earlier tonight, where I also saw, for some reason, a Christmas ale. I know we just passed Christmas in July. It is not time for Christmas ales. Give me my damn pumpkin beer first. I know I'm one of those weirdos who likes pumpkin beer, but that's okay. It is what it is. All right, so we'll move it first into the trade deadline. Some of the deals that went down after we went off last week. It was a heavier trade deadline than I was expecting. It was a lot of mid-depth guys that were traded. There really wasn't a lot of top of the pack, creme de la creme available for most of the teams, but I'll skip over some of these. Orioles, Phillies for the second time in the deadline. The Orioles got Gregory Soto, who I believe promptly gave up like 4 runs in a third of an inning. So Phillies fans were not surprised nor upset to see that happen. The Phillies got Seth Johnson in return. The Cardinals got reliever Sean Armstrong from the Rays for Dylan Carson. Dodgers picked up Kevin Kiermaier from the Blue Jays. The Dodgers got Flaherty from the Tigers. They sent back catcher first baseman Thyron Lorenzo and shortstop Trey Sweeney. Joe, I didn't see what the O's sent to the White Sox for Eloy. Do you have that handy?
I don't remember seeing that either, but
Okay.
I know it was just a couple of position players. It wasn't something super significant.
Okay, which given Eloy's injury history is fair.
I mean, giving up guys that are healthy is kind of an unfair trade for the Orioles, but
yeah, that's also true. Pirates got Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, the super utility player from the Blue Jays. They sent over Charles McAdoo, a third base outfielder. The Pirates also grabbed Brian De La Cruz from the Marlins for right-hander Jun Seok Shim. The Padres made arguably the biggest move of the trade deadline, getting closer Tanner Scott from the Marlins, as well as right-hander Brian Hoeing for left-hander Robbie Snelling, Adam Mauser, Graham Pauley, infielder Jay Bashirs. The Twins got Trevor Richards from the Blue Jays. The Mariners got JT Chargois from the Marlins and sent back a minor league reliever, Will Schomburg. The Mets got starter Paul Blackburn from the A's for reliever Kate Morris. The Royals got Paul DeJong from the White Sox, who just had to go from one dugout to the other. I thought that was the funniest trade of the trade deadline. White Sox got back a minor league pitcher, Gerald Rosado. Really, a lot of depth moves. Nobody really huge. I'm looking to see if I missed. Josh Bell once again traded at the trade deadline, which is becoming yet another trade deadline tradition now that he moves. The D-backs got him from the Marlins. Yankees and the Cubs. Yankees got Mark Leiter Jr. The Cubs got back a pair of minor leaguers, Ben Coles in the infield and Jack Neely, a pitcher, right-handed. The O's got Trevor Rogers from the Marlins for infielder Connor Norby, outfielder Kyle Stowers. So that there were other trades, but like I said, it wasn't a high value trade deadline. It was a depth pieces kind of trade deadline. And again, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that so many teams were still technically in it, because for that extra wild card spot, you have more teams that have that consider that they have a shot versus normal. So, Joe, give me some general thoughts. What did you think?
I think it was nice to see the Pirates go out and get some pieces to bolster that offense. I think the Pirates definitely got better. I think some teams, I was excited to see the Royals kind of make some moves and try to bolster as they get into things. I was shocked at some of the bigger name guys who didn't move, I think. I thought more action, at least on the pitching front. I thought there was plenty of action on the hitting front. I was surprised that the Blue Jays didn't trade when the value is not as low as it's going to be in a couple of months. With Vlad Jr. I was surprised they didn't trade Bichette. I was surprised that Toronto didn't just burn the house down basically and sell it off. That was shocking to me. I thought they'd do a little bit more, at least initially. That's some of my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I think they made good moves, but yeah, you're right. I was also expecting more out of the Blue Jays. To be honest, I wouldn't have been shocked to have seen Vlad get traded. As much as they don't want to trade him, it wouldn't have shocked me in the slightest.
His value's only going down because he's had such a bad stretch most of this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought for sure they would trade when he couldn't get much worse.
Yeah, agreed. Ron, what were your thoughts on the deadline?
Honestly, the only one I paid attention to was the Phillies not really doing anything.
It was a curious that they went after bullpen arms, which they absolutely needed, but they needed more in the outfield, and one trade is not going to fix your outfield issue.
Yeah, they all in all throughout the whole deadline, I'd say there was a lot of shocking trades.
Joe, Matt's got a comment for you. Vlad has been white hot, and Matt, he has been hot over the last week or 3 weeks, but before that, it's been more of a down year for Vlad than what we're used to seeing. I mean, compared to his career norms and his career averages, he's definitely down this year compared to normal. Some guys I was surprised that we didn't see them move. I was surprised the Nationals didn't trade Kyle Finnegan. There were so few closers available on the market. You'd have to think the Nats would have gotten something at least halfway decent for Finnegan, maybe a mid-level guy in the team's top 30. Joe, any word why the Cubs didn't trade Tyone?
Nothing specifically, but I think a week or so ahead of the deadline, Jed basically said, look, we'll make moves that make sense for, 2025 and moving forward, as opposed to just trying to make moves for this year. Which is kind of shocking that they didn't move him. Maybe they just didn't like the return they were gonna get on that. I thought they might make a few more moves, but I'm not really gonna lose too much sleep over it. They don't seem to. So, I certainly expected them to make a few more moves. I thought Nico might get traded. I thought, a lot of guys might be available that weren't. So all in all, I can't complain too much. I think the Yankees getting Mark Leiter Jr. is a net positive for them. Although Leiter is a righty, he's very good against left-handed hitters, which is an anomaly for relievers that are righties. So I think the Yankees got better with that particular move. But yeah, not really clear as to why they didn't make anything. They just must not have liked what the return was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like the buying teams, by and large, were not overpaying for prospects. There were definitely some. I mentioned last week in the with the Yankees Marlins trade where the Yankees got Jazz. I thought the Yankees heavily overpaid there. But by and large, I don't really think there was a ton of overpaying this year like you often see at the trade deadline.
One thing on that Chaz trade,
Mhm.
they may have overpaid, but it's working out for them, especially in that Philly series.
Yeah, so far so good there.
Yeah.
Jason popped on here. Hey, dudes, leaving water for me tonight. 40's coming down the tracks at me, and I'm tied to the rails. As I said before you hopped on, Jason, man, it sucks turning 40.
I would not know that feeling for at least another 10 and a half years.
Yeah. You'll get there soon enough, dude. Unfortunately, I am on the other side of the 30s decades, so I know I'm going to be eating my words in about 4 years, but that's okay. I'll deal with it. 3.5 now, I guess. I'll deal with that when the time comes. At least Joe's closer than me. The Giants did not move Blake Snell. I wasn't really surprised by this. I know he was mentioned as a lot of teams were, feeling the water for the Giants, but his contract makes him almost impossible to move, especially with all the opt-outs he has and the fact that he is consistently a bad first half pitcher, albeit a good second half pitcher. It's very rare that he puts together an entire good season. So I can understand teams probably not wanting to pay what the Giants were asking for there. And then the A's. There were not a lot of power bats, and the A's held on to Brent Rooker. I was very surprised by that. Mason Miller, I wasn't as surprised by, given that he's dealing with the injury from, being dumb and punching stuff he shouldn't be punching.
Would fit perfect in Philly.
I just, every time a pitcher does it, I'm just like, the hell are you thinking? Or at least punch with your non-dominant hand, you idiot.
Well, he did.
Yeah, I know, but still. If you're going to punch hard enough that you're still going to miss time, you shouldn't have done it.
Or at least just like, even if you're a pitcher, pick up a baseball bat and just start smashing something that way. Like,
worked for Big Papi.
Yeah, it did.
And then the White Sox, who could not trade Garrett Crochet because of some ridiculous demands he made right before the deadline, as we talked about last week. That was surefire way to get sunken stuck there. Don't know what the hell he was thinking. That was wow.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with his mentality and his thought process there for sure. But I don't know if a lot of teams would have been willing to do anything anyway, because he's not proven this is the most innings he's ever thrown. So at some point, he's going to get shut down in September unless the White Sox are stupid.
I don't know that he's going to make it to September.
What?
He might get shut
White
down.
Sox being stupid?
I mean, I would expect them to shut him down in September, if not later this month. I mean, it depends, but I just don't know that there was enough evidence that the guy could do it later in the year because he's never done it. So I think that also probably scared some teams away, and maybe the contract talk is just another way to sort of blame it on something else.
That's fair. That's fair. Looking at the winners and losers, first we'll look at the buyers. For me, the winners were the Cardinals, the Dodgers, the Mariners, the Mets, the O's, the Royals, the Pirates, and the Padres. Although I'm going to call the Padres a winner, I also think they massively overpaid the Marlins for a closer. I don't like the deal, but all but for the season, looking at it through that window, they are a winner. The Padres do have a damn scary bullpen now. If they get a lead and get into that bullpen, it is going to be hard to break through late in the games if they can make the playoffs. Question is, do they have enough offense to support the pitching? I just don't know. I'm going to tend to think probably not. Anybody else you guys want to add or take off my winner list?
To me, the only ones that I really considered winners of the buyers, I guess, were the Royals and the Pirates. I thought they did the most to improve their clubs. That Urzeg from Oakland, that could be a sneaky good move.
I like that move a lot,
Kansas
actually.
City. And I think that those are the only two teams who really got significantly better. I mean, the Dodgers, you could argue got better, but it's a lot of money to spend and capital to spend to just lose in the NLDS because they haven't proven they can do. They haven't proven they can get there. So I really don't care how much money they spend or how much trading they do until they can prove they can do it. I'm kind of suspect on them. So I think, to me, the Royals got significantly better. I think that, like I said, I think the Pirates got better offensively. And if the Pirates can get in and have Jones, Skeens, and Mitch Keller, that's a scary, scary, sneaky good team.
Well, and one thing to remember with the Pirates, too, by waiting so late to bring Skeens up, they'll be able to extend him farther in his rookie year than you normally would with a young arm like that. And it's definitely possible they might say, we're not going to start him this postseason. We don't want to put that much wear and tear and just run him out of the bullpen. But I got to tell you, man, I'm honestly more terrified of Paul Skeens as a closer than I am as a starter because with only needing to go one inning, he could probably hit 105, 106. So that's almost more terrifying.
I would be nervous to them to try to do that kind of move. Baseball players are creatures of habit, and you don't want to be screwing around with a young kid's arm like that. The guy clearly can throw as many pitches as he wants to. I mean, he's thrown somewhere around 115 once or twice, I think. So the guy can clearly handle it. I don't know that you necessarily make a change in that regard, at least.
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, I just think that, I was just saying I don't think I'd make a change if I'm the Pirates on that front. You do have David Bednar closing, and he's been excellent for the better part of a couple of years here. So
fair. Jason's thoughts on the Phillies trade. On the trade of Soto, good riddance, got a great starting pitching prospect back. Overall, not a great deadline by Dombrowski. Could have and should have been done. I don't necessarily disagree with Jason. I put the Phillies in my undecided category because I do like the bullpen moves they made, but they needed an outfield bat and they did not go out and get one. The trade they made with the Orioles before the deadline, I do not count that as we shored up the outfield kind of move at all, because that's more of a replacement platoon guy, and they needed a big right-hand bat out there, and they did not go out and get it. I do agree with Jason that Dombrowski definitely could have done more. I'm a little surprised he didn't do more, although, again, the talent available was not great overall. I also have Atlanta on the undecided. They went out, they got Soler, they brought Luke Jackson back, Matzek's gone, and that was literally and one prospect with it. That was the only move Andopoulos made. And as we know from several off seasons, Andopoulos is known for being not quite as aggressive as Jerry DiPiotto is out in Seattle, but he's not far off either. And I think the fact that Atlanta didn't make more moves just was more of a show of there's just not the talent pool wasn't deep for the deadline this year, and the asking prices were higher than what Atlanta was comfortable doing. I would have loved to seen them going after like Flaherty or something like that, but at the same time, Ian Anderson's ready to be brought back up after AAA. They've got other young arms they can bring up. Injuries are mounting, and the Braves have been so snake bitten by injuries this year. I almost don't want to send away a ton of prospects to bring guys in because God forbid they're probably going to get hurt too, because that's just what's been happening all year. I mean, Whit Merrifield went day to day right after we got him. Granted, it was just a 1-2 day thing, but still, it's I'm just feeling a little cursed this year with on the injury front, and that's all I've got to say on that. For the buying teams that I'm going to call losers, I'm going to go Red Sox, Astros, Twins. I felt like those three teams had the opportunity there. They had the prospect base available to trade guys out, and they just really didn't do anything to shore, or barely did anything to shore anything up. What do you think about that, guys?
I feel like they honestly didn't really do what they probably should have done.
I think for me, I think the two teams that really missed an opportunity to get significantly better here, the Phillies, obviously, and I think also the Orioles. I feel like they should have gone out and gotten at least one more starting pitcher.
I was surprised the Orioles weren't harder in on Flaherty, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, they did have him for half of last year, so maybe they kind of knew what they were getting and didn't want to spend the capital on him. But I thought for sure they would go after somebody else, whether it was Tyone or somebody else who was middle of rotation type guy, and they just didn't do that, which kind of surprised me. I mean, I think they have enough talent to probably make it work, but I just thought they might go and solidify their rotation a little bit more. I think the Phillies, to me, I feel like they could have gotten at least one more bullpen arm and maybe another outfielder to make things a little stronger for them.
Yeah, it was definitely not the deadline you expect when your GM's nickname is Dealing Dave. For the sellers, I had 5 teams that I called winners: the Marlins, the Angels, the Rays, the Reds, and the Blue Jays. I like the returns that they got. I think sometimes they could have gotten a little more on some of the trades, but I think overall the prospect haul was good quantity as well as good quality back for those teams. Just looking overall, especially, like I said, especially the Marlins. I think the Marlins really, as far as sellers goes, I think the Marlins did better than just about anybody. And for a fire sale that left the team's major league payroll between like 13 and 14.6 million, you should be getting something back. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think they did a good job of cleaning house and getting something out of it. I think, De La Cruz was huge for them, but it was pretty clear that they wanted to get, reload and retool and get better down the road. And I think they did.
Just hopefully to be traded off in the next fire sale in 3 to 5 years.
Right. But I mean, I think at least for now, developmentally they'll get better in the next couple of years, and trade pieces when you can get some value for them. And I think, we talked about some of the other teams that may have missed out on that opportunity, not trading some guys they probably should have. But I think the Marlins just said the heck with it.
And that's
every
also why
piece we have is going.
Yeah. And that's also why I had the Rays on there. The Rays weren't necessarily in need to sell mode, but they recognized the shallow talent pool, and they dealt guys that they needed to get rid of big contracts, or they dealt guys that don't fit with the organizational plans long terms as they try to work younger. I thought, as always, the Rays play the deadline better than almost anybody. Losers on the seller side, sorry, Joe, but both Chicago teams for me, the Tigers, the A's, and the Giants. The A's I purely have on there for not trading Rooker. The Giants didn't. This is a bad team that really could use yet another youth injection. They didn't do anything other than trade Soler, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a big miscalculation on the Giants' part. They're like, well, they're only 4 games out. I'm sorry, but you can, I said weeks ago when the Cubs were 3 games out that they were more like 10 out because they didn't have any tiebreakers. And I think being 4 back among, that crew of teams, like, to me, that the Giants definitely should have sold.
Yeah, go with some games played earlier, 4.5 back in the wild card, 9.5. They're not getting the division. They're not coming back from 9.5. And they're holding a negative 11 run differential. And you trade away one of your power bats. Yeah, it just didn't. Very confusing lack of direction from the Giants. The Tigers, I'm purely going to put them on here because that's all you could get for Flaherty, who at that point was the best starting pitcher being made available to teams. And that's all you got back. Pathetic. And
I'm really shocked that they didn't make Skubal available if they decided that they couldn't win.
Yeah.
That really shocked me when they made the decision to start selling. You're like, okay, and then sell Skubal because he can't get much more higher.
Yeah,
value.
Skubal's value is through the roof right now. He's going to be a good pitcher for a long time. Now, I get it. He is arbitration eligible next year. Free agency will be 2027. So I get it. The team control, it's there. But that's the thing. All that team control, that means you jack your asking price way up. And if he was truly available, they would have had a ton of top-level prospects thrown at him for him.
Oh, they would have, for sure.
You don't see a Cy Young caliber candidate be made available that often. And when they are, teams are going to jump on them. So the Tigers just not a good deadline in my book. And, we alluded to the Cubbies earlier and the lack of moves. For me, also the White Sox, I didn't think they got a great return on most of their trades. I really thought they sold themselves short.
Yeah, I was surprised that they didn't try to get Robert out the door for some pieces because it felt like every team was looking for outfield depth that was buying, and I think they certainly could have gotten some skilled guys back for him. So it kind of shocked me they didn't move him, but beyond that, I wasn't. The returns weren't great, but as far as guys that they could have gotten rid of, that's the only one I think they had a chance of getting rid of. They did get rid of Kopech, and Kopech has been better since he left, shockingly. But, I think, I agree with you on the White Sox. I think they could have gotten better returns, and I think they should have sold a few more pieces. The Cubs, the unfortunate part about the Cubs is they weren't really built to sell at this point, right? So you have Tyone, who's got 2 years left. You have Steele, who's under team control for at least another 2. Happ and Nico were locked in last year. Swanson's got 5 years left. Like, you didn't have a lot of guys that were freed up to be sold. And you didn't have guys who were performing the way you need them to perform to sell them. I mean, Bellinger would have gone easily if he had been performing and not hurt for the better part of a month and a half with 2 injuries this year. So, I mean, they just weren't really built to sell, and the pieces they could sell, a few of them they did, and a majority of them they kept, and you're just kind of like, all right, let's see what happens.
Yeah. No, you make good points, and especially Belly has played himself into being untradeable, and realistically, he's not opting out of that deal. He's going to take that money, and the Cubs are going to be stuck with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate part, and it kind of, creates a logjam with some of the top talent they have in the outfield down at AAA. So it's kind of just a weird situation to be in from a depth standpoint. I feel like they could have gotten rid of some of the outfield depth down on the farm to kind of, create less of a logjam for some of those guys.
Yeah, definitely. All three of us are NFL guys as well as baseball guys. One thing you always see at the NFL is they're trading draft picks all over the place. Do you guys think MLB should let teams trade draft picks, even if they want to like restrict and say not the top 3 or no supplemental picks? When you sign a guy, but then he goes back to college, you get a sup pick the next year. Maybe you can't trade those. They let them trade international slots now. So because you saw Atlanta and I want to say either the Dodgers or one of the West Coast teams a couple years ago was trading for those as well. Back when that first became allowed. Do you guys think MLB should let MLB teams trade have their draft picks available as a trade asset as well?
I'm honestly surprised they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. It feels like, it's another way to make the game a little bit more interesting. Truthfully, I think, there's a lot less focus in MLB on the draft. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I actually watched it or really followed it other than following it along on Twitter or whatever, for Cubs picks. But, it doesn't have the same draw that the NBA and the NFL draft has. So, I mean, I'm kind of shocked that they don't make a little bit more of a spectacle of it. And maybe if they trade draft picks, maybe that will help. I don't know.
Well, and again, your best bet with most guys you draft, you're looking at 2 to 3 years before they're developmentally able to come up to the majors and make an impact. I know Skeens is a very obvious exception. He's a once in a generation kind of talent. Most guys, you're looking 2 to 4, maybe even 5 years before they're going to be able to make an impact on a major league roster. So I don't know if that's why MLB has never tried to play these guys up more, or if that's why they feel like it's just not, outside of top 5, top 10 picks, those guys outside of the top 5, top 10 rounds, I'd have to look at the numbers to see how often they actually pan out. But, I feel like outside of Road to the Show and MLB The Show, those guys after round 10 don't often make that big of an impact anyway. So I don't know if there'd be a ton of value there outside the top picks or not, but I don't know. It's just a thought.
And I think you make an interesting point there because it takes a while for those picks to potentially even pan out to begin with. So that's probably the other reason that they don't really do that. I mean, the NFL and the NBA, you're going to see you could see an almost immediate impact from a draft pick trade. Whereas in Major League Baseball, you're not going to see it. It's such a different game. And the development is so different. So that's probably, to me, the reason why it doesn't make sense to do it. But I don't know. Maybe you start, putting broadcasters on the trade block. Maybe that's an alternative.
Now that's an interesting idea. All right, let's move it on to fantasy, which was once again awful for me as I was, again, busy last week and had almost no time to watch it. Plus, with Freddie Freeman being out for the last week and a half, I do not have a backup first baseman right now, and because I got rid of the guy I had earlier. So, yeah, that's on me. So, I got absolutely crushed by Todd, 17-8. Joe, you had a really rough week with Tim. You went down 19-8, and Jason barely squeaked by Ron, only 14-12. As Jason points out, the Wheeler trade really paid off because that trade helped him beat you this week, Ronnie. I know. Standings after week 17, it's a whole nother toss-up. Tim's on top. Jason's a game back. Todd 6.5 back. I have fallen to 11 back, but still in the playoffs. Joe has slipped all the way down to 5th at 16 back, and Ron, you're sitting comfortably in the first overall pick next year at 34.5 games back. And we'll be nice, Ron. We're not going to make you run laps or anything before you get to cash in that number 1 pick.
Well, I hope not.
No, you see all kinds of ridiculous things like these fantasy football leagues do. Your draft picks based on your time in the 40-yard draft.
I just saw that.
30, 40-year-old guys pulling hammies trying to run it. Funniest thing I've seen on the internet this week, not going to lie.
The way that the people humiliate the people who lose in the fantasy leagues is hilarious.
It's brutal, man. Football is like, you don't really see that in baseball so much. Football is brutal sometimes. Anyway, moving it on. A lot of injuries over the past week and a half. Atlanta was hoping not to put Reynaldo Lopez in the 15-day, but they did end up putting him on there with the right forearm inflammation. Bo Bichette, 10-day IL for Toronto. This is the third time he's had a calf strain this season. I'm therefore putting Bo Bichette on my be careful what you wish for when you draft list, because Jesus, that's a lot. Jason's popping off here. What fantasy drafting are we going to do next year, and what are we going to make Ron do ending in 6th? Jason, toss up some ideas, man. This is a mostly democracy, as you know. Mike Trout, once again, done for the season with another freaking knee tear. The most cursed guy I've ever seen. Great talent, just hasn't been able to stay healthy since like 19. Not a fantasy impact anymore, but he was expected to be one. Adbert Alzolay of the Cubs, season-ending surgery in the right flexor injury that he had. We don't know what kind of surgery or the recovery time yet, but Joe, that could be a reason why he was just so ineffective this early this year after being so good this year.
There's a lot of question marks around this because it's the same flexor that he couldn't finish the season with last year, and he started the year, and it's like, well, how healthy was he? Because it doesn't seem like he was, because he just wasn't the same pitcher as he was the 3 quarters of last year. So I don't really know who screwed up what, but it feels like this was a giant shit show to put it mildly. I don't know who messed this up, but if he's having surgery already on the same flexor area, how healed was it, and should he have been pitching to begin with?
I'm going to say not no.
Like I just can't fathom it, truthfully, and I'm as big an Adbert fan as the last guy, but and you guys know that from talking about him the way we have. Yeah. But I mean, clearly not the same pitcher as he was for 3 quarters of last year. And if it's the same issue, then just how good was he?
Yeah.
And who messed it up?
Exactly. Trio of injuries for the Diamondbacks. First, Christian Walker, the first baseman, went on the 10-day IL with a left oblique strain. Pitcher Bryce Jarvis on the 15-day with the right elbow sprain. He might be out for the rest of the year. There's an outside shot, maybe for playoffs. Jason just noted one. Diamondbacks catcher Gabriel Moreno left tonight with a significant knee injury. That is not going to help the Diamondbacks out one bit. That's a pretty bad one. Also, I know shocker of shockers, KB likely headed back to the IL with rib cage soreness. Talk about snake bitten guys who can't stay healthy.
You know what? It's funny you mentioned Trout. I saw this on Twitter the other day. Foolish Baseball said that since 2021, Anthony Volpe has played more games than Mike Trout. And Anthony Volpe didn't make his MLB debut until last season.
Jesus, that's horrible.
So, like,
wow, that's so bad.
Snake bitten. The KB thing, you feel so bad for the guy. But this is something that, I mean, you guys know my feelings on the guy. I mean, I'm happy he was there to help them win the series, but he wasn't much good after that. And it just kind of precipitously got worse. And he just, the numbers weren't there. And now he just can't produce anything. You feel terrible for a guy like that.
Yeah, at least buy low, sell high worked out pretty well with KB.
Yeah, really.
And then let's see here, the White Sox, because we haven't railed on the White Sox enough yet tonight, because with the pace they're going, they've earned this. They've been pathetic most of the year, but they just dropped their 20th consecutive game yesterday. It's the longest losing streak in the majors in 36 years, one short of the AL record held by the Orioles, 21 straight in 1988. And let's remember that was 21 straight to open the season. So no, even if that record gets beaten, that's still pretty special bad losing streak. The NL record held since 1990, that's held by the 1961 Phillies, who managed to lose 23 straight.
I just saw that on Facebook earlier today too.
I mean, I know the Phillies have had some bad years. I never knew they had a year where they lost 23 straight. Damn. That said, though, I wouldn't be shocked if the White Sox pass it. The worst streak in MLB, now that belongs to the 1889 Louisville Colonels of the American Association, which lost 26 straight en route to a 27 and 111 season. So, yeah. Now, the White Sox start a 3-game series tonight with the O's. What do you think? Is the streak going to end, or are the O's going to sweep the White Sox? You're looking at two last-place teams. The O's are.
It's not the O's. It's the A's.
Right, the A's. Thank you. The A's are at 46 and 67. The White Sox at 27 and 80. Jesus, that doesn't even feel real.
They have the A's.
They have the A's
% winning.
To me, I think this continues until the weekend, and then the Cubs lose a game or two, because that's baseball for you. So I think this streak will get to 24, and then the Cubs will lose to the White Sox on Friday night and make me a miserable son of a bitch on Monday.
Oh, great.
Here's the probables for the series. Tonight, Oakland is starting Sears versus Bush, Stripling versus Cannon tomorrow, and Estes versus Martin on Wednesday. Hey, God, I don't know enough about any of those 6 pitchers to be able to guess one way or the other. But good God, that's hideous. That's truly hideous. I think tonight, ESPN's matchup predictor has it 66.1% in favor of the Athletics. The over/under's at 8.5, and the line's -210 on Oakland. So yeah, not looking so hot for the A's at all, is it? The last 20-game losing streak was 1969, the Expos. So it's been a long time since anyone's lost that many games. And the White Sox are now 60 games below 500. It's the first time that's ever happened in franchise history. Thank God for that. That should never happen more than that in franchise history. They're on pace to end at 38 and 124. That would be the most.
Is 120 the record? Is that?
No, the record for losses, that was 1899, the Cleveland Spiders, 20 and 134.
Oh,
so it's only a 154 game season, but so the White Sox have already passed that in wins, but they only need 10 more losses to pass the losses. And I think they're pretty much a lock at this point for that. Good God.
Yeah, this is bad. I do think I'm going to stand by my prediction. I'm going to say that the A's sweep the White Sox, and then the Cubs lose on Friday night or Saturday.
It wouldn't shock me. It just wouldn't. The last win for the White Sox, July 10th, they beat the Twins in the front end of a doubleheader and haven't won a game since. And during the losing streak, they have been outscored 131-48. That's video game bad. That's video game bad right there.
It might be worse than that. It's really just it's such a shame too, because that those fans are hungry for good baseball, and it's just Reinsdorf is such an asshole of an owner to not invest properly in that club, and to really be cursed the way they've been cursed. I mean, they've only won. I think they've only been to the playoffs one time in 25 years, and that was the year they won in 2005, I think, or something like that.
Pulling it up. Give me a second.
It's one of the only years in the last, I think, 20 that they've won a playoff series.
Let's see here. Yep, 21 they lost the ALDS 3-1. 2020 they lost the wild card round 2-1. 2008 they lost the ALDS 3-1. 2005, when they swept the World Series was the last time they won any playoff series. That's insane. Also, the fact that since 2005 they've only been back to the playoffs 3 times. Good God.
Yeah, it's really a shame because those fans are hungry for good baseball, and they deserve it. And Reinsdorf is terrible, and I just something's got to give on the south side of Chicago.
And
Seriously.
the crazy thing is the White Sox franchise and their history actually started off pretty good. The first year was 1901. They were first in the division but didn't make the playoffs that year. I don't know why. Then they went to 4th, 7th, but then 3rd, 2nd, and then in 1906, this is only their 6th year of existence. They won the World Series 4-2 that year, and then they won again in 17. But it's wow, early success did not lead to long-term results. Let's just leave it at that. Jason had a thought here. The next team to lose to the White Sox should be relegated to AAA. So, Joe, I hate to say this. It sounds like, based on your prediction, Iowa's moving up to the majors and Chicago's getting moved down to AAA.
Well, to be fair, I did recommend that they send everybody down to Iowa not too long ago. So
that is
I guess if the shoe fits, right?
Yeah.
If the shoe fits.
Yeah,
I know my...
wow. All right, so wow, and the fact that the White Sox have drawn 936,000 fans already this year is just blows my mind that they've drawn that many. They're still going to draw probably 1 million fans this year by some miracle, even though they have one of the worst run differentials I've ever seen. They're at negative 247. They've only won 27 games, and we're at the first week of August. I got nothing, guys. I mean, they could win out, and they're not gonna scrape 500.
No, the other day before, I think it was before yesterday's game, it was they could win 50 straight, and they would finish the season 8 under 500.
That's so bad.
So I mean, look, it's awful.
I got a new prop bet. Who's gonna have the worst games back by the end of the year? The White Sox or Ron in fantasy baseball?
The White Sox. That was mean. That was uncalled for.
I'm definitely going to have to go to the White Sox.
It's not even close.
But then again, I could make a trade with Joe so that he could start moving up the ranks.
Dude, I told you to send me a counter offer 3 weeks ago, and you haven't done it yet.
I don't want any of your players.
Yeah, well, that's your own fault. All right. Joe, did you have anything set up for Read the Room tonight, or have you pretty much let out your anger so far?
Most of my anger is in our group chat. I mean, I don't quite understand. You have a lot of fans who will get pissed off about what their team does or doesn't do at the trade deadline or in free agency, and yet they still go to the games. Like, if you're that upset about it, stop going to the games, please. There's a reason that ownership doesn't have to care. It's because you keep sending money to them by going to the game and spending, $100 on beer, and there's no incentive. So I would just say, as a fan, if you're a fan of the team, don't encourage the stupid behavior. It's ridiculous. Expect more out of your club, then don't line the pockets of the owners.
Absolutely. Looking at Down on the Farm, since Jason's not with us this week, the hitter this week is going to be out of AAA, the Durham Bulls, the AAA affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays, Bob Seymour. He is a first baseman. In 6 games, 21 at bats, he slashed .381, .409, 1.095, and an OPS 1.504. He had 8 hits, 5 home runs, 6 runs scored, 7 RBIs, a walk, and 7 strikeouts. Not too bad of a week there. And we'll stay in the International League this week just because I don't feel like jumping around to find guys. Let's go with Hey, here's a guy I've never heard of. Let's go with you. We're going to go with Edgar Barclay. He is with the AAA Wilkes-Barre Scranton Rail Riders. That is the AAA affiliate. I'm sorry, Scranton Wilkes-Barre, God forbid. Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, the Yankees AAA affiliate. He had 2 starts this past week. He went 1-0, pitched 13 innings, gave up 7 hits, 1 earned run, 1 home run, only walked 2 guys. He struck out 11. He has a .69 ERA, a .69 WHIP, and a .159 batting average against. So that's going to be our top hitter and top pitcher from the International League this week in minor league baseball. Not too bad for those guys. I'd love to have a week like that. Joe, anything you want to bring up on the Cubs this past week?
Taking 3 out of 4 against St. Louis is certainly a positive, weekend. I don't know that it's going to carry over. I would like it to, but I'm not holding my breath. I'm not one of those Cub fans who's going to be like, oh, we're out of the basement now. Like, we still have a shot. Like, no, it's time to start bringing guys up, and they've started to make some moves down in AAA. Matt Shaw, James Triantos, have both been promoted to AAA. Matt Shaw was their number 1 draft pick this year. It's time to see what you have in the cupboard and see what you have, to tie into your last segment down on the farm. It's time to see what we have.
Yeah, bring them up. Hey, Joe, the Cubs are almost back to 500 against St. Louis, so they're up to 6-7 this year.
Yeah, well.
Hey, take what you can get, man. Take what you can get. All right, let's take a look here. Moving it on, I picked a very specific shirt tonight. Freddie Freeman left the Dodgers last week because of a family emergency, and last Thursday, his wife Chelsea gave an update on Instagram. She said, "Hi all, we wanted to give an update on Maximus. He's the youngest of their 3 sons. Last Friday, so that was the Friday before, he rapidly declined and went into full-body paralysis. We're very fortunate to have gotten him to the hospital in time so they could reinforce his lungs. Freddie was in Houston at the time and rushed to the first flight back home. After many tests, Max is battling a severe case of Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's a rare neurological condition that's especially rare in children. These have been the hardest and scariest days of our lives. Maximus is such a special boy and has been fighting so hard. This is going to be a journey to recover, but we have faith that he will be completely healed. We have been blown away by his improvements in the past 48 hours. He was extubated from his breathing tube and taken off the ventilator yesterday, which would have been Wednesday last week, which was a huge win for us. And then just yesterday on Instagram, she said, after 8 long days in the pediatric ICU, we are officially home. Max still has a long road ahead of him to regain his strength and relearn how to walk, but we are so thankful to have our family back together. Thank you, God, for this miracle. Also, thank you to our incredible team of doctors and angel nurses for taking such good care of our boy, and to our village for helping so much with Charlie and Brandon, the other 2 sons." Guillain-Barré, it's a syndrome where Guillain-Barré syndrome is a condition where the immune system attacks nerves. It can cause weakness, numbness, or in extreme cases like this one, paralysis. There is no known cure, but most people do make a complete recovery. I was looking some stuff up on Mayo Clinic. That's where I pulled that from. He had previously contracted transient synovitis, which is a temporary condition that causes hip inflammation, and it's somewhat common in younger boys. It happened 2 weeks beforehand, and they're thinking that's what triggered the Guillain-Barré and activated it. I'm always going to be a Freddie fan, no matter where he goes, even if it's the damn Yankees, although I don't think that'll happen. It's like Ron when Reese left. Ron's always going to be a fan of Reese, no matter where he goes. You hate to see the good stuff happen to good people, but it sounds like his son's on the mend, and I'm just happy to hear it. Freddie's always going to be one of my favorite guys, no matter what team.
Yeah, it's great news for the positive steps that seem to be happening, and certainly we'll continue to pray for the Freeman family that things continue to trend in the right direction.
Absolutely. All right, and then moving it on, we've got Joe's food for thought question. So, do you want to read it off, Joe?
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I think it was right around maybe a day or two before the trade deadline. The Royals and White Sox were playing, and Bobby Witt was having one of the best games he's had probably all year offensively. I think he had a double and a homer and a single maybe. I don't know if he hit the cycle, but I think it was,
He
at
needed
least
a
3 or
single
4.
for the cycle.
He needed a
Yeah.
single. Okay.
That was the game. Wasn't that the game he got hit in his last at bat and didn't have a chance to complete the cycle, which caused a benches clearing brawl when the Royals retaliated the next inning?
Probably. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
So, I mean, he was having an excellent game. And Steve Stone, who is a longtime color analyst for the TV broadcast for the White Sox, said he would rather have Bobby Witt Jr. than Shohei Ohtani on his team, which obviously sparked a lot of interesting discussion. But I'll put it to you guys first. Agree or disagree? Would you rather have, in this situation, Bobby Witt Jr. or Shohei Ohtani on your team?
I'm going to completely agree with that. I'm going to read Jason's comment because I think he nails it. I'd take Witt over Ohtani. Give me the bat, the speed, and the defense over just a bat.
Yep.
Because as we've pointed out, Ohtani has no value as a pitcher anymore. And it's dumb to risk his value letting him pitch anymore because all of his value is in his bat. Witt has more tools, and he's a younger guy. He's going to give you a lot more years. And truth be told, the way he's going this year, I will not be surprised if he wins at least one MVP in his career. I completely agree. Give me Witt.
Yeah, it seems like this is a pretty unanimous one for us. I'd rather have the guy who can help me in multiple ways instead of just one.
Yeah. I hate DH only guys. I really do. I like having flexibility in the roster because when injuries inevitably happen, hello Atlanta this year, it's good to have those guys that can step in and fill multiple positions. And I like having Soler back, but it's also a reason why I'm worried of having Soler back because he doesn't provide much value defensively, and Ozuna provides even less value defensively. It's like Ozuna's as bad as Schwarber in left field. So flexibility is good. I think Witt can play almost anywhere from what I read in his scouting reports. He's a true 5-tool player.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see. I agree with you. I think he will probably win at least one MVP, if not more, before he's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, I know I kind of discounted it a little when I heard Royals fans, as they were getting ready to call him up, calling him the next coming of George Brett. I don't think they're as crazy now that I've watched him play. He really is that special of a guy. I really, truly hope he stays in Kansas City for his career like George Brett did because those fans deserve a player like that. Talk about long suffering. All right. So, Ron, the Phillies. Jason said this week was absolutely forgettable and proved more needed to be done. Sure, teams have struggle points, but that 6-game streak was horrid where anything that could go wrong did go wrong. And I will say, at one point, to be fair, you guys had some absolutely dog crap officiating last week behind home plate. He said, I'd rather it happen now rather than later, but holy hell, it's been a terrible stretch of god-awful baseball. And the schedule isn't any easier this week with 3 at the Dodgers and 4 at the Diamondbacks.
Yep.
So, Ronnie, what are your thoughts, man?
Honestly, after watching the first couple games, just it got to the point where I just was getting the updates on my phone because I didn't want to sit through watching horrific games of them just getting blown the fuck out. It was terrible. Their bats weren't there, and if they were there, the pitching wasn't there, giving up runs and hits and so on and so forth. It's just a terrible last 14 games.
Yeah, they've been the worst team coming out of the deadline, I think, in all of baseball, other than maybe the White Sox. But I might be wrong about that. So, yeah, I know it's been a rough time for the Phillies. I'm going to say I'm not too terribly sorry based on how the season's gone so far, but I feel for you guys. I do.
Yeah, I expect them to recover. I think they just had a really awful week.
Well, we knew August was
so.
going to be awful for the Phil. Their schedule is doing them no favors this month at all. So,
No, it's not.
roll with the punches. It's what you got.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting. This was pointed out over the weekend by Jason Stark. Going into Saturday afternoon, the Phillies were 4-12 since they got rid of Whit Merrifield.
Yeah, in Atlanta, something like what?
They were 3-0 going into Saturday's games.
So 3-2
since Merrifield had started.
Oh, so, I don't know if he started all those games. Probably.
Yeah, since he made his first start, they were 3-0, and the Phillies have been 4-12 since they released him going into Saturday. So
that's baseball for you, man.
Yeah, that's baseball for you. But it's just like,
damn.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I feel like if Dombrowski knew he wasn't going to make as many trades at the deadline, he should have kept Whit. I don't know why he got rid of him.
Need the roster spot. It's the only thing I can think of.
Well, right, but if you're not going to, if you kind of knew, it seems to me like he kind of knew what he was going to spend money on and just didn't do it.
Yeah. It's great to have a lockdown bullpen, but if you can't get a lead to said lockdown bullpen doesn't matter. Same issue I said with the Padres earlier.
Yeah.
All right. Milestones this week. Blake Snell threw a no-hitter. Any other milestones?
Jason mentioned in the group chat about Harper hitting or getting his 3,000 total base.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I remember Jason mentioned one, but I couldn't remember who, what, when, and where. All right, so Harper with 3,000 total bases and Snell with a no-hitter. All right, that's our milestones for the week. Quickly for Atlanta, it's wild how your perspective can change from week to week. Last week, we were on a 6-game skid. We had dropped 2 straight to the Mets and then pulled the next 2 straight out and started to pick up some momentum. That was right about the time when the Mets fans on Twitter did their yearly, Atlanta's done, the Mets are going to rise, haha. And then New York's kind of been crap ever since, and I'm okay with that because I always love watching that happen to their fans. We took 2 out of 3 from Milwaukee, which they definitely needed to do. Bullpen kind of imploded in game 1. And then this weekend, we started off 2-0 against the Marlins and then dropped the last 2. It was just, it's incredibly frustrating to see how a 4-game split can look one way and then look the other. The shutout yesterday was bad. Freed got lit up. It was also his first start coming off the IL. So I did not have high expectations for that game. Freed traditionally does not start the first game off the IL very well in his career coming off of injury. So I wasn't necessarily surprised to see that happen. And then it turned it into a de facto bullpen game that the Marlins kind of took advantage of, which it's okay. We're off tonight. Gives us a day off before we have the Brewers yet again. So, because, MLB loves to stack teams every week or every 2 weeks. It's really, to be honest, kind of annoying. So I think good changes are happening. The bats are starting to wake up. We just, you're going to have bad nights pitching, and we've just got to move on past it. So that's where I'm at. Looking at the hot list for me, my hitter this week, Vlad Guerrero Jr., 536, 606, 1.107 line, 28 at bats. He had 15 hits, 7 doubles, 3 homers, 8 runs, 8 RBIs, 4 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Just to go back to Matt's point earlier, Vlad's white hot right now, and it really kind of makes the Blue Jays look a little bit foolish, perhaps, for not trading them, unless they think they're built to compete next year, in which case then they made the right move. I guess time's going to tell on that one. Ron, no hot hitter for you this week, right?
I was looking Volpe.
All right.
Like he went 11 for 26, had, let me see here, 3 home runs, 7 ribs, and he batted .423, OPS of 1.269.
All right.
So I mean, honestly, that's a hot hitter to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't say no to that. Joe, your hot hitter?
Well, at first I want to the sort of tongue in cheek, I guess, but Eloy Jimenez, since going to the Orioles last week at the deadline, 5 for 9 with a double and 2 RBIs. Um, so he's seems to have at least woken up a little bit offensively, um, which is great. The quote that really got me with him was the energy they have. They pump me up. I feel really good. I feel like I've been playing here for a year, and it's only been 3 days. To be able to feel like that, it tells you something. So I'm really happy for him to have gotten a change of scenery because a guy that talented shouldn't be wasting his time where he was.
Yeah.
So I wanted to at least recognize the positive momentum he's got now that he's out of Chicago. But my official hot hitter is Vinny Pasquantino from the Kansas City Royals.
Mm-hmm.
5 runs, 9 hits, 4 homers, 12 RBIs, a walk, 2 strikeouts, 1 stolen base. Hitting 333, on base at 357, slug of 778, an OPS of 1135.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Who's your Moneyball hitter this week?
The Moneyball is Perdomo from the Diamondbacks. 5 runs on 9 hits, 4 doubles, 4 RBIs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, 2 stolen bases, an average of 529, on base of 579, slug of 765, and an OPS of 1344. Aaron Judge had 8 walks and had a higher OPS, but this just drives me nuts because he was walked against the Blue Jays. This is getting to Barry Bonds level stuff. He was walked against the Blue Jays with 2 outs and nobody on, and I think the Blue Jays had a 2 or 3 run lead. It was like, okay, like
just pitch to him.
Just pitch to him. This is ridiculous. So I could have very easily had Aaron Judge as the Moneyball hitter, but to me that just really irked me the wrong way. So Perdomo gets the nod this week.
And hey, you're the one who picks Moneyball. It's your criteria. All right, my top pitcher pains me to do it because I can't stand the guy, but it's going to be Blake Snell, 1-0 with the no-hitter, 9 innings, 11 strikeouts, ERA of 0, whip of .33, 3 walks, no hits. Ron, did you have a hot hitter for the week, or excuse me, a hot pitcher for the week?
I did not.
Okay. And Joe, do you have a hot pitcher, or are you just going to right to it?
I do.
Okay.
Edward Cabrera from the Miami Marlins, one of the few regular guys still there. 1-0 in 2 starts.
You would pick Cabrera, asshole.
I sure as hell would. 2 starts, 10 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, 4 walks, 15 strikeouts, a whip of 1.00, and a batting average against a 176. I didn't pick him for any reason to dig at anybody. I just thought those numbers were impressive.
They were. I mean, his line against Atlanta was 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, no runs. So, yeah. Of course, that said, our starting lineup that day was a lot of guys that you don't normally see starting. So, and a lot of guys subbed in when the route was very quickly put on. So, can't say I'm shocked. Joe, who is the adulting reliever of the week?
This was much harder than it's been in recent weeks. I will say that. Mm-hmm. No reliever really set himself apart, and you'll kind of see that here. I had we'll do Jalen Beeks for the now with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was traded last week. 3 innings pitched in 4 appearances, 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, 0 for 1 in save opportunities, a 1.67 whip, and a 250 batting average against. If I'm picking somebody like that, the relievers did not have a very good week.
Yeah, relievers suck the whole. I don't think anybody's fantasy relievers look good this week. I mean, that should tell you something.
No, that this is like Cubs earlier in the year bad across the entire league. So yeah, this was not a great week for relievers, but I thought just overall with transitioning teams and still having a pretty good week, I thought that was
Yeah.
worthy of recognition.
No, without a doubt. Hot teams for me this past week. I'm going to go Padres. They've been 8-2 in the last 10. They're on a 2-game winning streak. I'll put the Diamondbacks in there as well, 8-2 on a 1-game winning streak. The Yankees at 7-3 on a 2-gamer. The Twins at 7-3 on a 4-gamer, and definitely not the White Sox at 0-10 on a 20-game loser.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are doing what they need to do.
It's the AL East is deadlocked right now. The Orioles and the Yankees are in a dead heat, and looking at the grid for the tiebreakers, it's the Orioles that hold it right now. They have a 6-4 record against the Yankees. So at this point, it's Orioles 1 and the Yankees at 2.
Right. And there'll be a 3-game series close to the end between those two, I think. They had 3 games left.
It's going to be
between
them.
Because it's 13 amongst division opponents now instead of the 18 or 19 it used to be.
God, I hate this new schedule.
So they have at least 3 games left against them. So
they have 3 at New York, September 24, 25, 26.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Circle that one. Holy cow, man. That's going to be a good weekend for that division. That's going to probably decide that division.
Yeah, that's last week. Yeah, last week the Orioles are on the road for 6 games to end the year. 6 at New York, 6 at Minnesota.
Yeah, that stretch will decide the season there.
The Orioles, if they're smart, they're going to hit the gas and put it away before then, because that's not a stretch you want to have to fight for your lives to win the division at that point.
No, I want them to hit the gas and win 41 games, and then they can calm down, because then my prediction will be right. They have 67 wins, and I said 108. So let's go.
Right now, nobody's even projected to win 100 games. I mean, that's baseball is not, even the Phillies being the high flying hot starters. Even them, nobody is projected to get there. It's kind of wild this year that we might not see a 100-game winner. Now, hot streaks aside, because we always know somebody's going to get hot late August, early September, and might get there. But it's kind of wild that we're looking at this point that we might have nobody get there. All right, the week up ahead, Atlanta 3 versus the Brewers, because like I said, let's keep playing the same damn teams every week or every other week, because fuck this schedule. All right, Elder versus Rhea, Sale versus Peralta, Morton versus Montes. Then Atlanta starts a long, I think it's a 10 or 12 game road trip with 3 at the Rockies, Schwellenbach versus TBD, Fried versus Quantrill, and TBD versus Freeland. That Rockies series feels like a trap series to me, because Schwellenbach has never pitched in the altitude, and I don't think Fried's always pitched particularly well there either, so we'll see what happens there. Cubbies have a nice light 5-game week. 3 versus the Twins, Hendricks versus Festa, Imanaga versus Lopez, Assad versus Ryan, and then a stupid 2-game mini-series at the South Side. Tyone versus Crochet, Steele versus Flexen. Phillies this week continue what Jason is dubbing the road trip from absolute hell, and I don't think he's necessarily wrong to say that. They've got 3 at the Dodgers, and that is Nola versus Glasnow, Sanchez versus Kershaw, Phillips versus Stone. And first of all, that's damn brutal right there. I'm not going to lie. And then 4 at the Diamondbacks, TBD versus Montgomery. Yeah, they didn't update that. Wheeler versus Nelson, Nola versus Gallen, and Sanchez versus TBD. Ron, how are you feeling about 7 in a row on the road against the 2 top teams in the NL West right now, including the division leader?
I'm feeling a 3-4 record.
I can't say I blame you.
And the probably 1 win from the Dodgers and maybe 2 from the Diamondbacks, but
I'm sorry. 2 of the top 3 teams, technically the Padres are a half a game ahead of the Diamondbacks at this point. My bad. But still.
it
doesn't make it any better. Does not make it any better. And then, yeah, it's at least your schedule lightens up. You guys have the Marlins and the Nationals in the week after, and then the Marlins, it's only a 2-game mini series, so could be worse.
and we will be there for one of those games. Well,
Yes,
except for
indeed.
you.
Yeah, I know. Middle school orientation is what it is. Still can't believe I've got a kid old enough to go to the middle school. Orioles this week. They're on the road all week as well. 3 at the Blue Jays, 3 at the Rays. Rodriguez versus Bassett, Rogers versus TBD, Kremer versus Gaussman. 3 at the Rays is Eflin versus Lytle. Eflin's heading right back to Tampa Bay after they trade him. How ironic. Burns versus TBD and Rodriguez versus Spring. So this should be a good week for the Orioles to try and make some ground on the Yankees and get closer to Joe's 108 game prediction. So we'll have to see what happens there. All right, guys. Anything else this week? That's good. All right, guys. Audio recordings are available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. We're live on YouTube and on Facebook. Merchandise is at redbubble.com/people/DDAB-podcast. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer. Our Twitter page at DDAB_podcast. All 4 of us are still on there. I'm at PyroLord314. Jason's at JRicker300. Joe's at JoltonJoe35. And Ron is at DipnerRon. We're presented by Dark Arrow Podcast LLC and sponsored by the phenomenal Baron Barbershop over in Mannheim. Guys, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a good one. We'll see you next week. Hopefully Jason will be off the 7-day IL by that point.